Hey guys, welcome to another emergency episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co-host here, Ashton, with my awesome co-host Zach, and our awesome guest here, Soup. Just crazy last few days. We had the pop on. We had to get a guest, maybe a few guests, but we had to be able to talk about all the drama going around. And Zach is in Indy, as a lot of our longtime listeners know. So he's been, going across all the draft prospects, been going across all of Indy, just getting his fingers into everything. You even heard Schefter a little bit talking about stuff. So I'll transition it over to you, Zach. How you doing, and how's Indy
Ooh,
right now?
it's been a crazy week. I mean, I'll talk more about combine and prospects and stuff hopefully next week with a special guest. I'm really excited about that. This one's all going to be about Stafford, the experience at the
Mhm.
combine, things like that. I'll say the last week has just been crazy. I was just in LA, got to visit SoFi Stadium, got to get the lay of the land there, so that was exciting. Then coming back here into Indy, and it's full NFL everywhere you go. I mean, you go to
Mhm.
any of the nice restaurants downtown Indianapolis, you're going to run into a coach, a GM. It's pretty exciting, and so yeah, it's a busy week here in Indianapolis, and I really hope that moving forward, the combine continues to be here in Indianapolis because it's not just coming from me. You hear GMs, you hear coaches, you hear those other people just saying how much it is, how much enjoyable it is to be here in Indianapolis, whether it's the Hoosier hospitality or whether it's just the convenience of the hotels, the convention center, the medical areas that they have downtown, and also being connected to Lucas Oil without having to go outdoors. Like that's something you can't say in pretty much
Mhm.
any other city in the United States.
Yeah.
Soup, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm a little exhausted from the back and forth that we've been hearing over the last few days. I think it's cool that you're out there in Indy. I've spent some time out in Indy, got to go do a couple of events down there in Lucas Oil, so I know what you're talking about. It's a great location, man. Like once you get over, depending on what time of year, right? Once you get over how muggy it can get there, it's just a great location right there by Lucas Oil Stadium. There's food, bars, drinks galore, all within walking distance, shouting distance. Everybody's pretty friendly down there. And like you said, it's just really convenient. You don't have, there's not a lot of like, hey, let me hop on a highway, drive down here, let me go get stuck in traffic. It's like once you're down there, there's hotels and
Mhm.
everything. You can walk everywhere, and I think
Yeah.
that's definitely the advantage of keeping the combine there. Is you're not having a bunch of people shuffle around.
Yeah, and the prices are reasonable. I mean, this is the Midwest where the price of living is low. Hotels, you can
Mhm.
get high end hotels if you want to, but there's also some moderate and lower cost hotels, which is perfect. I mean, today we were just thinking about it, and you list off what other NFL team could host the combine. You have to take out every outdoor stadium team there is,
Yeah,
um, because you can't just say well, what about this team because it's warm weather? Well, it could rain. Like you have to have a dome. Then you look at, all right, the convention center is literally attached to
yeah.
Lucas Oil Stadium. You do not have to go outside to go from the convention center where the media is, where all the weight training and stuff like that is taking place, to get to Lucas Oil where they're having the big events, and that's where they're doing all of the testing and the on field stuff. And like I said, the hotels are also connected to the convention center, which is also connected to
Mhm.
Lucas Oil. So it's all fun. The other thing that I will say that is an experience outside of anything else that you'll see in the NFL. Like a lot of people like the combine. It's just you're just seeing the NFL. Just the prospects, the draftees, just doing their thing. It's cool, but you don't know what team they're going to be on. Blah 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 blah. But what I will say that is the most unique experience of any NFL event is the ability to meet the coaches and GMs. Number one, GMs are hard to meet as it is.
Right.
They're
Mhm.
the behind the scenes wall. And even coaches, it's really hard to interact with the coach unless you like get on field passes or something like that. But here at the combine, I'm just going to show some pictures. I don't want to flex, but I do want to just post some pictures. Like these are people that we get to see just walking the halls. I don't have media credentials into the combine. I'm just walking on my lunch break, and who do I get to run into? I get to run into Aaron Glenn, new head coach for the Jets, and our boy Kevin O'Connell, former OC for the Rams during the Super Bowl run and head coach for the Vikings. So, and these were just some of them. My intern, who's actually in the photo with me, he got to meet his head coach, Sean Payton. He's a Broncos fan. So it was really exciting for him to be able to meet the head coach. He also got to meet the GM of the Broncos. We got to meet John Harbaugh. It's just one of those things where we were just running into people. We were just doing laps and just walking by these head coaches and GMs and no one bothering them. We were super appreciative. Every single one of the coaches and GMs that we asked to take a photo of, they let us take a photo of them. My intern got a photo with Adam Schefter. Nice guy. He said, "Yeah, I'll take a photo with you." Like, super chill. We weren't trying to bother anybody. We're just like, "Hey, can we take a photo?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." So really appreciative for all those guys who let us, take those opportunities.
Yeah, nothing else, Zach, was happening this week. No other disturbances, no other conversations going on. You were talking about the prices there in Indy. They probably for drinks and food, you're right. Maybe for quarterbacks, sounds like the prices are going a little bit up. Do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, we might as well go ahead. I mean, that's what this whole episode's about. That's why we're doing the emergency pod. I will tell you, you did not have to be in the media access room to hear all of the rumblings, all of the whispers about Matthew Stafford. Where's he going to go? Who's he going to go with? Is he going to stay as an LA Ram? Is he going to move on? Is he looking for the money? Is he looking for a long-term deal? It's kind of like a you don't know situation. Everyone has their theories. You go on X, everyone has their theories on why the two are having this struggle. But yeah, rumors every day. I mean, Soup, every day it's a new team that's coming into the spotlight of courting Matthew Stafford. Giants were the big ones because he has his brother-in-law is now a quarterback coach with the Giants. And then yesterday, big news coming out that Tom Brady was courting him in Montana. To join the Raiders. By accident, yeah. Or by not accident. We don't know. I mean,
it doesn't matter.
That's how the incident happened between the two insiders in Indianapolis. Soup, what are your thoughts about this whole Stafford situation?
I mean, as a fan, it's frustrating, especially because I think everybody at the end of the season, we see that, like, Stafford's not finished. He's definitely at the end of his career, right? Much closer to the end than he is his prime, but he still has a lot of juice left in the tank. And I think, the three of us have been Rams fans long enough. We remember what it was like to not have a quarterback. And so I think there's a lot of fear going into this season where, hey, he's a known quantity to us. We know what he brings to the table, the good and the bad, for the team. We know what he's capable of doing and what he's demonstrated over his tenure here with the Rams. He helped us bring a Lombardi to SoFi. So all of those things, all of those good feelings, warm and fuzzies, as a fan, is frustrating because you're trying to understand, especially I've seen this argument, right? You juxtapose the two parts of his career, right, where he spends the majority of his career in Detroit before they become the Lions of today, right? It's because of that trade that they're allowed to become the Lions of today. But he was essentially wasting away on that team and he was not on a Hall of Fame trajectory and stuff like that. He was just one of those super, super talented players that was just trapped in an unfortunate situation. And so I can understand the argument from people that are like, well, dang, don't you want to do a favor for the Rams? Like, they helped lift your career, right? Like, they gave you an opportunity to compete in playoffs, in the postseason, to compete for a Super Bowl. My thing is, though, I think we have to keep in perspective as fans, like, as much as the franchise helped him, he helped us. We needed him too. We had been to the championship in 2018 with Jared Goff. And no shade to Jared Goff. Even like McVay in this most recent podcast said, hey, he was just out of his depth. Like he wasn't ready for that moment. But yeah, we don't win in 21 without Stafford. We don't come back from a dang near a 1-6, 0-6 deficit this season to make the playoffs and become 13 yards away from going to play in the NFC Championship. I don't think that there's a quarterback that's currently on the market that could do what Matthew Stafford is doing. And then, of course, even with the people in the draft, say we had the number 1 overall draft pick, I like some of these prospects. I'm really, really high on Cam Ward. Am I confident that he's going to be able to execute the way that Matthew Stafford is? I mean, how many clips over the last 2 years, how many Matthew Stafford to Puka Nacua highlights, just ridiculous throws to the sideline or just, changing the arm slots and launching those that looks like. I know we've taken it for granted now because he's been with us for, 4 or 5 years, but it's like not every quarterback is capable of doing this. So it's frustrating as a fan, but at the same time, even though it's frustrating, I think now I'm at the point where I'm just fatigued of all the narratives, and I just want something definitive so that way I can start to, prepare myself for the season. Whoever's going to be under center for the Rams, that's who I want to rally around, even if it's a person that, maybe I don't care for, an Aaron Rodgers or something like that, right? Like, my thing is this, if you're in the horns, definitely if you're playing at the most important position on the field, you're out of your mind if you think I'm not rooting for you to be great. I need you to be great. I'm not ever going to actively root against our quarterback.
My problem, and I want to talk about the Aaron Rodgers stuff definitely because I'm going to sound that bell all day long that I am against this. You can follow.
We'll get to that in the second half of the pod.
Right.
We'll talk about like alternatives, but let's focus on Stafford, the rationale, pro team, pro Stafford. Let's go over that a little bit first.
So so I want to talk about that for a second because I did post on our X account that let's look at Stafford's career. Stafford has been on the Lions. I think they had a
12, 13 years, something like that?
12, 13 years. How many winning seasons did he have? Granted, it's the Lions. I get it. He was the best part of their team.
Two.
I think maybe 1 or 2.
I believe 2.
Okay.
He had the 2 seasons they went to playoffs.
Right. So he was with the Rams for 4 years. 4 years. 4 years and has what? 3 winnings? 3
winning seasons in a Super Bowl.
In a Super Bowl. I get it. But you look at this season too, and I'm trying to be subjective. I want Stafford back. I don't want anyone to take that wrong. But you look at it, he was 13th in passing yards, 12th in passing first downs, 15 in passer ratings, and 15 in passing touchdowns. Our struggle this season was getting into the end zone with receivers. It wasn't getting into the end zone, period, because Kyron Williams did that 13 times. It was getting into the end zone with receivers. And when you have Puka Nacua, I know we had 5 games where we didn't have Puka Nacua and we didn't have Stafford. But Puka Nacua only had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp had 6 touchdowns.
I think Higbee had 3 touchdowns and he only played a few games.
He played 3 games. And then you look at the last few games of the season where we were struggling. The only time in the regular season, the only time that we were successful in the last 4 weeks of the season was when we had Jimmy G, unfortunately.
Yeah, the ball was moving.
The ball was moving. And so do I want Stafford back? Yes. Do I think that Stafford gives us the best opportunity to win a Super Bowl? 100%. You will see me ringing that bell all day long. But I don't want the Rams to go into financial ruin to pay Matthew Stafford. I want Matthew Stafford to want to be a Ram, and I want the Rams to want to pay him to be a Ram. Right. Anything else, there's going to be conflict. We've already saw it a year ago when there was basically up to the wire negotiations that McVay had to physically be in a room with Stafford and nail down something right as training camp was supposed to happen.
Yeah, I think you make fair points there, Zach. Like, again, I talked at the top of it about, with Stafford, you take the good and you take the bad. And speaking of, him being towards the end of his career, there's some stuff about Matthew Stafford that even in the 21 season, like, frustrates the heck out of me watching him play. He has a tendency he gets his favorite guys and he locks onto them, and he has a hard time seeing the rest of the field because he is locked on to his target pre-snap, and it doesn't matter who's running open down the field. He's not looking their direction.
Yeah.
He's a gunslinger, right? He's a gunslinger. He wants the big play, and I watch some of these other teams. And I'm always like, man, why does everything look so difficult for this Rams offense? Why is moving the ball down the field so difficult for us, but it's so easy for these other teams that maybe don't have the same caliber of quarterback? And I was like, oh, it's because they're just comfortable taking what the defense gives you. They'll take the checkdowns. They'll take the stuff over the middle. And Matthew Stafford's going to attack down the sidelines. He's going to attack way deep, 20, 30 plus yards down the field. That's where he wants to go. And I can appreciate that because who doesn't like a big splash play, right? Like, who doesn't like explosives? McVay talks about explosives all the time. But you have to be able to shut that off and switch gears. There were a lot of close games this season that I think, man, if we just take what's available, the game isn't close. We're not struggling. We're moving the ball down the field. And if he's not locking on to a Cooper Kupp, or if he's not locking on to a Puka Nacua, and he's just strictly looking for the open man, there's a lot of different red zone scenarios where we walk away with 6 instead of 3 in those scenarios. So he's not without his faults. He had that stretch where I don't know what was going on. He had to be hurt or something, but the guy couldn't play quarterback. And my concern with paying somebody, let's just say $50 million, right? Let's assume that the rumors out there are true, because I want to say that the number that he's looking for is 50 minimum, right? But somewhere north of there. And I get it. The market is the market, and I'm not here to tell you that Matthew Stafford isn't a quarterback worth $50 million. I'm saying he's not worth $50 million to the Rams at this particular point in his career.
Or to put that even finer point, because I think he might be worth $50 million for a year or two. I think Stafford is looking for a 3-year deal, 50 per year.
I think he's looking for. And let's be very clear here. I think we all can agree the highest percentage chance here next year, the best quarterback to be starting for the Rams would be Stafford out of anyone. Out of all the available people that you can trade for, that you can sign, Stafford would be categorically the best person out of all those, with throwing angle, all that stuff.
For sure.
But now you have to look at it this way, and a lot of people look at it just by player or by team, but you have to look at both. The timeline for Stafford as a player in his contract isn't lining up right now with the timeline of the players and the team as a whole. And that's very important because people don't know. We have a lot of young players coming up with extensions in a year or two. And you can't just be like, oh, we got money in the future. Yeah, but the cost of players go up, their markets go up also, and you have to look at it as, if we sign Stafford now, even if he's good, even if he's the best quarterback next year and the year after that, we will be paying his contract, because I think he wants a 4-year contract. Even if he wants 3, then you're paying him a year or 2 after that, year 3, 4, and 5 with void years. And that means you're losing a Byron Young, you're losing a Kobe Turner, you're losing one or two of those high priority players, skilled players, or you're losing a Puka. And I feel like people don't understand that they have made so many of these mistakes in the past. I was hoping they would learn from it and they wouldn't stick a foot in like an aging veteran in a 1 foot in a young defensive core. And I was hoping they would just try to move and take that pill. Zach has heard me say this a lot of times. That kills a lot of teams, because most of the time, either the aging veteran blows up and doesn't perform, and you have that dead cap hit, or you don't draft good enough, and the young core around it is just not a good sustained team, even if the vet's great. If both of those happen, which most of the time it does at the same time to a lot of these teams that tries to do both at the same time, it's not pretty, and it gets very ugly very fast. So I feel like a lot of these people just pay him whatever he wants. You can't pay Stafford 60 mil for 4 years. That's unrealistic. And I would encourage everyone to listen to Jordan Rodriguez. She did a great interview, 20-minute interview talking about this. And it seems like the team has its number. They're not going to budge. And if Stafford is willing to get paid more elsewhere, he may not be the best option next year. Or sorry, we won't get our best option BQB next year. But if you want the long-term health of the team in 3 years from now, 4 years from now, and 5 years from now, you got to move on from him. And this is the last year you're going to get assets for him. I said same thing, and why I wanted us to trade Cooper Kupp at the trade deadline. I thought we could have got a second or third round pick for him earlier. Now we're only going to get a 4, 5, or 6, and I felt like those games weren't worth that loss in capital. Personally,
I mean, here's the thing. I don't disagree with that, but without Cooper Kupp, I still don't think that you would have been in a situation where you were one play away from going to the Super Bowl. I mean,
he
you
made
look at that.
what, 1 catch, 3 targets?
Yeah, but again,
in that game?
It's Cooper Kupp. I still don't think that things would still be the same if they traded him. I think Matthew Stafford's. I think Soup, you might have muted yourself, but I feel like not having Cooper Kupp or him being traded away could have affected Matthew Stafford. I feel like sometimes we forget that, yes, this is a business, but this is also personal relationships. And those two tied together, at least during this season, getting rid of them halfway through, I think could have been a major mistake as far as the relationship of the Rams. Still.
Yeah. Sorry, Soup. He's working through some technical difficulties right now. But yeah, Zach, I definitely agree with that kind of point of view. Whether or not Kupp is a little bit more minor, but when it comes to Stafford, I feel like this conversation is like, I wish we could pay him 2 years, like 52 mil. I wouldn't personally have an issue with that at all. I think he would be great on the Rams for the next 2 years. But he's definitely looking for a 3 or 4 year deal.
Yeah, I think you guys both bring up valid points. First of all, I think you guys can hear me now.
Yeah.
Okay,
cool. You guys are bringing up valid points, and Ashton, I'm glad that I'm not the only fan that's looking down the road and saying, hey, how does this contract, how does that timeline match up with the timeline of our young roster? At the same time, like I was on the wagon of kind of like, hey, you know what? It would be nice if we moved on from Kupp a little bit, maybe earlier than we were all ready to, got some assets. But to Zach's point, I also agree. I think it would have done something to that locker room chemistry. I think it would have done something to the culture, the environment that they've built there in LA to send him away midseason. I don't think it sends a good message to the remaining players in that locker room. I think one of the things that, even though we as fans lament it, right, and you've even seen probably some of my tweets like, hey, at some point, the Rams have to do business like a business. I think that's one of the things that has made us a ideal destination for a lot of these players is the way that we handle our players, the way that we handle some of these contracts with some of the more beloved, respected players. And I would like a more graceful exit for Cooper Kupp than a midseason trade. I think he's done enough that he deserves more than that. Even if that means that we're not going to get squat in a return, we're probably not even going to get an additional pick for him. It's probably just going to be a late round pick swap because we want to make him happy. I think certain players deserve to go out like that. And I hate it from a fan perspective, because even though I'm a fan of the player, I'm always going to be a fan of the organization, of the team first and foremost, because they get to move on. In 20 years, guess what? I'm still a Rams fan. Okay. So I have to deal with whatever else is coming on. I did want to circle back to, like I said, where you were talking about the potential upcoming contracts and where Matthew Stafford plays in this. I keep hearing these arguments that, well, the cap is going up every single year. But Ashton, you made such a smart comment that I wish more people would understand. The cap isn't the only thing that is going up every year. The individual skill position market is also going up every single year. There's going to be somebody else that breaks the bank at one of those positions and now sets the bar, you don't want to be the team that pays the guy after that is set. You want to be the team that sets that bar, and then everybody else has to pay over that. You look at what I'm calling our young core of players, right? I think our key pieces, which at this point in time, I'm going to say defensively, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Jarrett Verse. That's the core right there on the defense. Now, some would argue Quentin Lake, but I think he's on a different timeline because if I'm not mistaken, his contract is either up this year or the following year.
Next year, I believe.
And I like Q. But I would say those four are that. And then on the offensive side, we took care of Dotson, but Steve Avila is going to have to get paid.
Yeah.
And he's really damn good.
In 2 years.
He's going to have to get paid. Puka Nacua is going to get paid, and he's going to make stupid money. He's going to make stupid money. And I also happen to be in the camp of I liked what I saw from Bo Limmer this year. Miss me with those last 2 snaps in Philadelphia. 6th-round guy coming in. I think he has what it takes to be that center because he's such a late round pick, and we've seen the value of offensive linemen going up and stuff. I think he's going to be one of those guys that we're going to be looking to pay as well. Now
he took Jonah Jackson's job.
That's what I'm saying.
He took his job.
He's
pushing them out of town.
Also, people don't want to talk about it because they're not sexy positions. Ethan Evans is going to have to get paid. Josh Carty is going to have to get paid. Yeah. These are all key components to, I think, the Rams' future. Cam Kinchins, if he continues, now we saw some greatness out of him this year, but if he continues to progress, Cam Kinchins is going to be on the timeline to get paid at the safety position as well. So
Agreed.
This isn't Madden. We can't turn the cap off. And I get it. We've been good at manipulating the cap, but here's the problem. There are too many contracts coming due at the same time. Yeah. If the Rams are hoping to retain all of these players, a couple people are going to have to get paid early. Yeah. Just so that way we can go and have money all over the place. To Ash's point, you can't have Stafford on the books, whether he's on the roster or not. He cannot be on the books for 50, 60 million 2 years from now. Because if I'm the Rams, I'm looking at Puka Nacua and I'm like, he's got to get paid early. He has to get paid early. This Jamar Chase contract is not going to be good for us.
No.
He has to get paid early. You know he's going to take up a good chunk of money. You know Jarrett Verse, if he keeps going the way that he's going, Jarrett Verse is going to take up a good chunk of money. What used to be quarterback salary.
Defensive player money. Top 5 defensive player total.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I'm going to say, I agree with all your points. So I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to put on the other hat.
Okay.
We will not be able to pay for all these guys. We will not be able. There's no way we're going to pay for these guys. So now you're asking yourself, we have this talent. We have Jared Verse. We have Brandon Fisk. We have Puka Nacua. We have Dotson. We got these pieces here. How do we win right now? How do we take these contracts that we are not paying on, but we have elite talent in rookies, in year 2 men, and how do we break that mold? And it all starts with your quarterback. If you don't have a solid quarterback, you are not going to break that threshold of getting into the playoffs and then even further make it into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but why didn't we make it into the playoffs?
We made it
into the playoffs, not because of our offense, but because of the defense.
That's true. But again, we're focusing on a defense that is young and hungry.
Yeah.
Your offense still has to score enough points to win the game. And again, I'm not saying this is to keep Stafford, but this team wants to win now. And so they're going to have to figure that out. Honestly, I think Jimmy G might be able to help. This is crazy coming from me. Ashton, you know this from me. This is crazy words coming out of my mouth. That if Stafford doesn't stay, which again, I want him to stay. If he doesn't stay, Jimmy G, I think, could take us to do what Stafford did. I think he could be our bridge quarterback that could stay at that high level that we want, or at least the same level as what we've seen in 2023 or 2024, and be able to get us similar similar ways.
I will say, Zach, and Soup, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe me and Soup are saying, like, we're agreeing that Stafford is going to be your best option for winning next year if you're talking about total percentage-wise.
Mhm.
But is that worth risking 2 or 3 or 4 years
It's
of a lot of pain and a lot, like, instead of losing one of those core members that you're most likely
One
going
or
to
two,
do with the
you
cap,
lose three.
you're going to be losing 2 or 3 for a
Yeah.
guy who's not even on the roster. And we have done this so many times. We have
It
seen it
scares
with
everybody.
players.
It scares
And
everybody. And here's the
yeah.
thing, right? It's a gamble. No matter what we do, this
Oh, yeah.
contract is a gamble because of the particular timing that it's coming in. I tell you right now, if you could guarantee me that if we pay Matthew Stafford, we're hoisting the Lombardi next year. I tell you, forget paying him $50 million, give him 90. Give him 90 right now.
Yeah.
And I'll take it. Whatever comes after that, that's fine. I don't care. But because that's not the way football works, I don't think it's smart for the long-term build. Do I want to compete next year? Absolutely. I don't think any fan wants to watch their team not be competitive and not have a realistic chance to win the Lombardi. I don't think that's what any fan wants. But
No.
this is a bottom line business. And at the end of the day, nobody cares if you made it to the Super Bowl. I don't care what anybody's opinion is. Nobody cares if you make it to the Super Bowl unless you're on the winning end of that. Do you know what that equates to? A better rating in Madden next year. That is it. Outside of that, and the Los Angeles Rams, believe it or not, do not play for Madden ratings. They play for Lombardis. So would our chances to hoist a Lombardi without Matthew Stafford under center be severely affected? I think so. But I believe enough in the coaching staff. I believe enough in the talent that we have put around Matthew Stafford, especially the young talent, that we can bring somebody in and we can be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple giants that are currently in the NFL that we're going to have to run through. A lot of them coming to SoFi next year, according to the schedule. We're going to have to run through if we want to compete. We know that the long-term answer, whether it's Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo, Aaron Rodgers, pick who you want, is not in the building right now. That Band-Aid is going to have to get ripped off at some point in time. Matthew Stafford is telling us right now, and I'm not mad at Matthew, by the way. I'm not mad at him for doing this. Like, far be it for me to tell you how you want to take care of your family, man, because I would be damned if somebody tells me to take less money. He doesn't want to go the Tom Brady route. That's his business. Thank you for your services. Yeah. Thank you for the Lombardi. I'm going to wear my 9 jersey with proud from now until the end of the time, the same way I wear my 13 Kurt Warner jersey. You do what you have to do for you. The Rams are going to do what we need to do for us. I like Matthew Stafford. I love Matthew Stafford in the Rams uniform. I don't love it for $50 million.
Yeah. And it's not just 50 overall. It's 50 guaranteed. 50 it's like almost entirely guaranteed. Yeah. With bonuses and stuff like that. So
I want to flip the scripts. We've been talking about a lot about the Rams and the Rams' reason for either keeping him or moving on. But let's talk about Stafford for just a minute before we talk into who could replace him if he decides he wants to walk.
Yeah.
Because, it all comes down to his decision. The question is why? Or the question is, what does he want out of this? Does he want to get paid? Because for the last 2 years, it seems like he wants to win championships. Like, that's his goal. If he wants that gold jacket, is having one Super Bowl, but only having 5 or 6 winning seasons of 17, 18, does that get you a gold jacket? Like, that's his end goal.
He cares about going into the Hall of Fame right now. I don't think he cares.
But he said it. We have video of him saying,
people say stuff all the time.
Here's a quick. Hold on.
Let me finish. But feeling it is different.
But let me finish my thought. That's what he said. We have video. He says, I want to win another Super Bowl. I am hungry for another Super Bowl. I want to win championships. I want that gold jacket. If he goes to a different team and loses the rest, not saying he will, let's say he does, is that one Super Bowl in the 3 winning seasons that he had with the Rams enough to get him into that Hall of Fame?
I'm gonna
I
say
can.
I'll say yes, because if we're having arguments about Eli Manning, I think that Stafford has had a better career than Eli Manning. And when I think about Hall of Fame, can you tell the story, the history of the NFL without that player? This guy has quarterbacked the three greatest wide receiver seasons, like two, like with
That's a fair
Megatron
point.
and Cooper Cup, and then the greatest rookie receiver season that we've seen with Puka Nakua, and he has a Super Bowl on top of that. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's done enough.
Fair
He's
point.
contributed enough to the game that I think there's a solid argument. I know he doesn't have the MVPs, the Pro Bowls, all of that stuff, but I think that Super Bowl was the biggest thing that was keeping him out of it. And I think that Super Bowl only ages better the further removed we get away from it, because when you realize what happened during that Super Bowl, where everybody that could have made a play was not available outside of Cooper Cup. We couldn't run the ball to save our life. We could hardly block with give him enough time to throw the ball. Everybody knows it's going to Cooper Cup, and he still found a way to do it. I think that story only gets better the further removed that we are. So I think in terms of his argument for Canton, I think he has a solid argument for Canton as is. I think he feels comfortable in that. And here's the thing. I think we have to take off our fan hats for a second and put ourselves in the shoes of Matthew Stafford, because most people are saying, let's just say Matthew Stafford decides to go to the Raiders. Well, all the talking points, all the talking heads are going to say, oh, well, then this is clearly about money. This isn't about competing for championships anymore. And I understand why you would say that, given the recent history of the Raiders, given their current roster construction, the turnover that they've had with coaches recently. I can understand why you would say that. But I think if you're Matthew Stafford, especially you look post-game Philadelphia comments, right? They asked him, hey, you got more football? And he's like, it sure feels like it. You saw that look in his eye. You hear the way that he said that. That is a guy that is an ultra competitor that still believes that he's one of the best people at the position in the league. And he honestly believes that if he's in a helmet under center on Sundays, doesn't matter what team he plays for, they have a chance to win it, because he believes that he's that good. You don't survive as long as he did in Detroit without that mentality. I don't think that's dissipated. If anything, I think it's inflated since the Super Bowl in 2 seasons that we were supposed to be dead in the water, and he's quarterbacked us to 1 to 2 plays away from getting on to the next step. I think Matthew Stafford feels like I'm a fucking winner no matter where I go. Just get me upright and get me somebody to throw the ball to. I think there's viable options, and he says, hey, I can go be competitive and I can get money. I'm going to do both. I don't think he views it the same way that we view it. And I think it's unfair for us as fans and people on the outside to say, oh, he cares more about this than that because he chooses not to be with the team that we support.
100%.
Yeah, I think he completely separates out the contract stuff to his personal, like, how he's going to look in history. I think he doesn't really think about that as much as we do as fans of the player. And he's just like, he's going to put it out. He thinks he can make any team competitive because he's that good. And you know what?
Don't think he can make the Giants competitive, but okay.
They got Malik Neighbors. I like it.
They actually don't have a bad defense. Last year, the defense was solid, and the offense, like the O-line had issues, but they have weapons. Like Tracy's actually a dog, and they have Neighbors. So, like, I don't feel like they would actually not be necessarily not competitive. But either way, without going on that tangent, I feel like Stafford, he has an argument for Canada. I don't think he's thinking about that now because he knows his body of work will speak for itself when it comes to that time. So I think it's kind of a mute point for him, and he's gonna get what he's gonna get paid what he think he's worth. And I feel like as a person, I understand that point of view, and I don't dog him for having that point of view. If you feel like you're worth more, and the company is like, we're kind of cash strapped, we want to make sure the future company, and we can't really make it work on the budget that you want to get paid. I feel like, it's like a mutual separation, and I feel like you just got to be understanding of that.
For sure. I mean, I definitely don't disagree with that. I would always just like to be like, dude, you made so much money, can You can't just, make a little bit, still make a lot of money, just a little bit of a salary bump, not, a major salary bump. Especially since, like, I don't know how many years he has left in him, because every
I think
year it
2.
feels like but if he signs a 3 or 4 year deal and then in 2 years he's like, well, I'm retiring, kind of like AD did. Like, we signed him to an extension and he retired, a year or two early, and so that we had to eat that dead cap. And it's one of those things where, like, I get it, but retire when you think you're going to retire. Like, you're putting. This is where I think, like, I get the business side of things, but then, like, as a person, I feel like you're trying to destroy a business by knowing I'm going to be out in 2 years. I'm going to take every penny that I can, screw the team over in their cap space, and
It was only 1 year with AD, so it wasn't like I get it.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, if you know that you're only going to be in this for 2 years, like, I feel like that's a problem.
And here's the thing. I think I just want to
I
touch
did
on
not
that.
say AD screwed the team.
No.
I just
want to touch on the AD point because I think it's a valid point too, Zach. But I think there's two things could be true at the same time. You would like a person to take the less money, but and you know that, like, hey, if we pay him and let's say he has a number in his head already, and I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about, like, he knows, hey, I'm playing 2 more seasons. That's it. But I'm gonna ask for a 4-year deal. Well, I don't think he's asking for 4 years for a guarantee. I think that's part of that goes into the agency stuff, because if you structure a short-term deal, right, a 2-year deal, because he say, hey, I'm paying this for 2 years, all of that cash is due early. There's no room to manipulate that number, that cap number. Like, you're going to kind of hamstring your organization. And by the way, that's any organization, by having that much money concentrated over 2 years. I think you end up getting those extra years. And by the way, that's what I think happened with Aaron Donald. I think they had a real conversation with him when they signed him to that final contract. And he's like, hey, I'm really only going to probably play 2 years. Maybe I'll come back for a third, but it's probably 2 years. Well, they say, in order for us to be able to pay you the number that you want annually, we're going to have to stretch this contract. And we know that, hey, if you leave early, we're just going to have to bite the bullet. That, to us, your performance, your contributions, what you bring to the team is worth us eating that on the back end if you decide to retire early. I think that's the same kind of conversations that the Rams are having with respect to Matthew Stafford now. Is like, hey, how many years will we have to give him to get to a number that he's comfortable with? And if God forbid, right, he gets injured and he can't continue, or we do win it all and he's like, hey, I'm out, I want to go out on a high, and now he's got 2-3 years of a contract that we're still going to be on the hook for, that we've got to eat. What does that look like with our roster math for somebody that isn't here? And I think it's just a risk that they're not willing to take based off of who else is on their team. I think if we didn't have players, I think if we had like 1 or 2 players, like, let's say all we had was Puka Nacua and Jarrett Verse, I think they do this deal tomorrow, because there's nothing, like, the future is all about what's in front of us in terms of this draft and free agents. I don't think they give a shit one way or the other. But I think because they're aware of what they have in their core, and to your point, Zach, we're not going to be able to pay everybody. That's just not what it's going to be. One of those positions is going to pop off on the market, and they're going to get priced out of what we're able to pay them. But I think they intent, you always approach it with the intent of, we're going to try to retain as much of this core as possible. And I think he just affects the math way too much, like the risk of what he could do long term, because you hope that you're going to have Sean McVay post Matthew Stafford. You hope you're going to have Les Snead post Matthew Stafford, right? That they're going to finally get to put their stamp on a quarterback that's of their own choosing, and something that McVay can help craft, coach, and build from the ground up. That's what you're hoping that you're going to have. And if you're going to do that, why make your life harder post Matt Stafford? We've already shoveled all the poo in 2022. We've been there. We've done that.
The 50 mil a dead cap every year for 4 or 5 years.
I'm just hoping we bridge time until we can get Joe Burrow. That's my. I don't think McVay wants a rookie. I think he wants someone he can take to the promised land easily.
I would say McVay pre-2022, I would 100% agree with you. He wants somebody that's already on his level. It's not somebody that he has to build. But I've seen so many Sean McVay interviews post 2022, especially over the last 2 years, and I think
Yeah.
he's genuine when he says he is really rediscovered his love for coaching and really investing into these young players and helping them build a talent set and like really like starting from the ground up. I think right now is the time that he would really welcome that because he's in that teaching mindset. He's very much in that giving and pouring into and investing mindset. And he has a team of people around him, his coaches and assistants and stuff, that he was very particular. He says, I want guys that are not going to be afraid of that challenge, that want to invest in our players, that want to build this young talent. I think now is the perfect time. Like pipe dream scenario, it won't happen because I don't believe the Rams are ever going to be that bad to get him. But bring me Arch Manning immediately. Give me Arch Manning and Sean McVay. You get the mobility and you get the arm. And you know he's got good pedigree on top of it. So his football IQ is up there. There's some stuff that I'm concerned about, but I think, hey, good coaching. He has the wheels that his uncles never had.
We're gonna have to trade up to get him.
But he's got the arm.
There's
Listen,
no way.
give outside of Jared Verse and Puka Nacua, give whatever it takes to go up and get him. I don't care. Trade every first round pick from now until I'm in the grave. Go get him.
So this is kind of a good catalyst to say, let's say Stafford is gone and he is traded and there isn't a white knight coming in at the last second to stop trade coming in. And let's say we get a first round pick swap and a second for him because I feel like they like a lot of people in the second. Zach, out of your flavor of options, and I'm laying this out for you very nicely because you were about to kind of rage on him earlier. You got your boy Jimmy G. I know how much you love the beautiful man. You got Aaron Rodgers, other man who's a little bit more crazy. We'll put it that way. Has a lot of stuff going on, or any other option. Like, what is the direction you think they should go? Should they go more safe? The guy who's in the system, Jimmy G. Should they take a chance on, Aaron Rodgers, be a little bit more volatile, but you can bring his whole band of misfits along with him? Like, which direction you want to go there?
I'm going Jimmy G. Love him, hate him. I'm going Jimmy G.
Tay is not worth that much?
No. Here's the thing. We're saying we're going to give up. We're going to give up Matthew Stafford because we don't want to pay him. But we're going to bring in, whether or not Aaron Rodgers wants to take a pay cut, whatever. But now we're going to pay Aaron Rodgers and we're going to pay Devontae Adams.
Both would have pay cuts, but yeah.
Sure, but what does that equal to together? And how long are these contracts? Are these going to be 1 year contracts, 2 years?
I would say
they're probably going to be 2 years.
1 or 2. Yeah, I would say Devontae would be like 2 or 3, and Rodgers would be 1.
The question is going to be, can Sean McVay control Aaron Rodgers to the point where Aaron Rodgers isn't going to just ignore Sean McVay and do whatever he wants?
So here's an argument that I've heard from one of the talking heads on TV, and I tend to agree with this. I think Aaron Rodgers is very much ego. I think all three of us agree. Like he's got a massive ego, but I think he didn't expect to get cut by the Jets, and I think that hurt him. I think it hurt him because it's now the second time in his career that a team has said no thanks to him. That he thought he was coming back and the team said no thanks. Green Bay, also, he thought he was coming back to Green Bay and he said no thanks.
So what other coach had an ego as big or a personality as big as McVay? He's been under.
Oh, right? I get it. My thing is, I think Aaron has seen how public criticism, how public scrutiny has like turned his narrative of his career and who he is as a football player. We're now mixing who he is as a human being into who he is as a football player. And I think there's a part of Aaron that resents that doesn't want to be remembered in that way, that doesn't want to be remembered as the anti-vaxxer, crazy conspiracy, darkness retreat guy. I don't think that's what he wants to be remembered for right now. Because whenever you mention the name Aaron Rodgers, the last thing people are talking about right now is football. And I think that's what he wants his name associated with. First and foremost, that's what he wants his legacy to be, is football. So I think he's looking for a bit of a rebrand. There is nobody, and I mean it, nobody in the NFL that is better at doing a rebrand, an image rebrand, than the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay. Jalen Ramsey was a loudmouth, could locker room cancer, but then he comes to LA and he's the biggest thing. That Rodgers is a locker room cancer. We've heard that from so many people that have come to the Rams. Dante Fowler wasn't productive, and he comes to the Rams.
Marcus Peters.
And Dominican Sue, Marcus Peters, right? We are used to dealing with these personnel. Aqib Talib is out here snatching people's chains and fighting on the field. And he was one of my favorite pickups that we got. So we are not in a position where we're not used to having big personalities. I don't think that's what scares McVay. I don't think that scares this Rams organization. And I think they would be smart enough. Hey, if we're going to really do this, if Stafford moved on, we're really considering bringing in Aaron Rodgers. I think there's going to be a very open, transparent conversation about what that looks like and what the expectations are going to be. And you're either going to be all the way sold on, this is the way that we do this. This is the we, not me. You're going to have to pour into these young guys. Yeah, I know you're a veteran and stuff like that, but if you're not going to be here for all of it, then thanks, but no thanks. We'll rock with Jimmy G, who enjoyed himself in the season with us, right? And I know what he can do. I've studied tape on him for years. We've played against him for years. He's familiar with our system. He's not Aaron Rodgers level talent. He's not Matthew Stafford, but he's been to the dance twice. He's good enough that if you have the talent around him, he can get you there. Can he win it? We don't know. So I don't think the Aaron Rodgers thing is, I said, I'm not a fan of it. I don't want to see him under center for the Rams, but I trust whatever they're going to do. If you ask me what I would want for a replacement, I'm going to throw it out there, and I know people are going to hate me for this too. I like the idea of Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't like him as the de facto QB1. I would like maybe a quarterback competition with him. But if I'm the Rams, crazy, I don't like anybody in this draft. Maybe I take somebody in the third or the fourth, right? Not in love with him. I would want to kick the tires on Joe Milton, and I would send Cooper Kupp to the New England Patriots for Joe Milton.
Yeah.
He has 4 years? He's got 4 years remaining on his rookie deal. Physical specimen, mobile, has a cannon for an arm. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that accuracy has been his Achilles heel. I get it. And can you coach that out of him? Nobody knows. But I think if there's somebody that can, and we can make the most out of it, I like the tool set that Joe Milton has. If I would also be calling up to the Lions, there's a guy that's under center for them right there, and Hendon Hooker, that has been forgotten in that system. And I think they wanted to switch to Hendon Hooker, but Jared Goff got better. Jared Goff got better every single year that he was there, and I think he's just kind of been left to rot. I think he would love an opportunity to go. And by the way, I'm not saying Hendon Hooker for the future. I think Hendon Hooker is a solid bridge for 3 to 4 years because he's still young enough that if he can come in and give you Goff level play, well, we've been there, done that, right? Like, we know we can win with that.
Yeah.
But I like the upside of Joe Milton. And by the way, if it works out, you got your quarterback of the future. If it works out, and I get it, it's a big if, but man, would that be cool.
At a cheap price, and both of those guys are like 5, 6, 7. Like you can get them easy on cheap deals, and if you do re-sign them, they happen to be good. As long as they're not like blowing up the NFL, which none of us are going to complain if they do that.
If they are paying whatever they want,
you'll get them on a 30 mil. Like if they're good and like you want to give them a little bit more. But I definitely agree with you. Those are two guys that I look at Soup as, I'm fine with Jimmy G as long as we get competition.
Mm-hmm.
And if either of those guys don't pan out and McVay doesn't like handing over the keys to a new kid, give it Jimmy G, let him fight for a whole year. Hopefully the defense is good enough again that maybe with new added pieces, we can have an elite defense and we can make that our identity like 2020 to win a Super Bowl that way. And if not, we can go into next year and focus on finding next QB of the future. And I personally would like, and a lot of people haven't liked to hear this, I also like Trevor Lawrence. I think giving him a shot, trying to trade for him, and if you can make the cap work out with the Jaguars, and Jaguars would eat a lot of their cap, they're not paying anyone anytime soon. And I feel like Trevor Lawrence is someone who has had not a lot of ability to show off, and when he has been healthy and the Jaguars had a pretty healthy offense, they were good. They weren't great, but they showed kind of flashes. And I feel like Trevor Lawrence is someone you could kind of give a shot, a second redemption arc. Like we saw this with Baker. I feel like McVay can make something out of some of these players who haven't had the best opportunities at their respective teams. And where this offense is going into this next year, I feel like this is a great year to reset it. Even if we lose Stafford, it was just such a mess of an offense. When you only have two good offensive games the entire year, you got to change something. And I feel like this is a good, like, this is a place to start. And you draft a wide receiver, tight end, and go from there.
And that's kind of why I do like Jimmy G. Because he was that quarterback. I mean, he was a starting quarterback for the 49ers who went to the Super Bowl twice. Unfortunately lost, but like he's been there, and I think McVay can rebound him into being that kind of player again.
They had stacked roster, man.
Sure,
it's
I
like
get that.
Flacco.
I get it. But my problem with Rodgers, going back to that, is that I think he's too old. We want to shift away from an old quarterback, so we're going to go to an even older quarterback.
Yeah, but only for a year, and he's not guaranteed. Like that's the whole logic there.
I know, but we're going to an older quarterback. He's going to be 3 years older than Stafford.
We don't have a problem with his age.
I want to. Well, some people do have a problem with his age. People think he's going to, once he gets hit, he's going to get hit hard, and that's the end of him. He could walk on the field for 30 seconds and then I like the idea of a younger replacement.
Yeah.
If we're going to get rid of Stafford, let's try to find someone who's going to be younger, cost less than Rodgers, even though he would take a pay cut. I still think he's going to cost more than what we get out of a Jimmy G or any of the options you guys throw.
So, Zach, out of Hooker or Joe Milton, do
or
either
Justin
of those
Fields.
Guys kind of intrigue? Or, yeah, Fields, too.
I've seen his name thrown out
intrigue? Do any of them intrigue you there?
I mean, they all kind of intrigue me. I mean, you look at it and like Kirk Cousins is going to be a backup quarterback for the Falcons. Like he intrigues me too. Sam Darnold intrigues me, but he's going to have a higher price tag than what we're going to pay. There's so many people that intrigue me. I don't know. I see a lot of them. I don't think Fields would be bad. I think McVay could thrive under, or that Fields could thrive under McVay.
I would prefer Fields over Jim G. If you're talking about pure starting, I would definitely have Fields over Jim G.
Here's the thing. Here's the only reason. This is the only reason why I don't like Fields. Only reason I don't like Fields is because he's been in the league for 4 or 5 years now. And you can say, well, look at where he was. He's with the Bears, he was with the Steelers. McVay's, in terms of offensively, he's better than both of those. Problem with Fields is, let's say Fields comes in and he's good. Well, you have to pay him immediately. It completely changes the roster math. And even if you pay him a Baker contract, a Baker style contract, what Baker's playing on for the Bucks, a Baker style contract next year is going to be north of $45 million per. It's not going to be in the 30s. It's going to be north of $45 million per. So you're still going to pay a substantial amount of money, probably more than what you were hoping, more than what you were going to want to pay. And again, now we're in this situation where we have this young core that we're definitely going to have to sacrifice more than what we wanted to, because what you're hoping, right? What you hope for any team is you either have the expensive quarterback and young skill positions that aren't getting paid, that are productive, or you hope that you have the people in their prime getting paid at the skill positions and a quarterback that is on a rookie contract. You don't want both things happening at the same time. And I think the Rams have learned their lessons, over the years about that. I don't think they want that scenario. I think that's why a player like Justin Fields would be off the table. By the way, I even think that's why a player like Hendon Hooker, who's almost at the end of his rookie eligibility, would also be off the table. That's why I'd like a quarterback like Joe Milton to come in there, because you still have time. If he comes in and he's good and he's the guy, you still have at least another 2 years before we really have to start talking about this. 2-3 years. You get to kick that can down the road.
But I think that's the good point of also about the Jimmy G situation. I think you get him cheap for a couple years, and you bring on that rookie in the next year or two, or you find your next veteran quarterback who wants to come to play for McVay.
Yeah, and the only reason why I keep leaning so hard on Joe Milton is because of the makeup of our current team. The energy of the team is young. And this is not a shot at Jimmy G. I'm not saying that he's old, but I'm saying compared to the average age of player that is on this roster is young. And I think this team has really thrived growing together, learning together. I think they love challenging each other and pushing each other in a unique way that, they're kind of figuring out how to be professionals together. And I think it's creating such a unique bond and unique chemistry. I like the idea of that. Now, don't get me wrong. It's been balanced by veteran leadership like Cooper Kupp, like Tyler Higbee, like Matthew Stafford. But I definitely think that these last few years we've done a good job of drafting people that I think are mature beyond their years, that can fill more of those positions.
Well, they were older. That's been one thing the Rams have done, is drafted slightly older rookies at later points in the draft that people passed on because they were older and they were more mature. And you saw these stories like Byron Young, they focused on the more mature, older rookies. And I think that's paid dividends. It's going to hurt on the tail end of their careers because their age, but I think it's worthwhile in the short term.
I just think that McVay gets, as much as I agree with you that he likes to coach the youngins, I think he likes to have someone on the field who he can talk to. He could who has that experience, who's been there, who knows what's going to happen. You don't want to take. Here's the thing: you don't want to take these newbies and put them in the Super Bowl, and then they don't know what they're doing. Because you go back and you watch, you listen to Sean McVay, and he's like, I wish I was more prepared. I knew going into that Super Bowl, I was not prepared to win that game because I didn't have the experience. You had Jared Goff, you had Todd Gurley, you had a lot of young Cooper Kupp. You had a lot of young players who've never experienced that kind of success before. And you're kind of looking at that now. You're looking at a team who, how many of them now who were with us in 2021 to win the Super Bowl?
Tyler Higbee, Rob Havenstein, Alaric Jackson,
and that's it. maybe.
Yeah, he was
there. We're getting so far removed from that that I think that you're still going to want to have that veteran experience, which again goes back to the Jimmy G, where he's been to multiple Super Bowls, can help alleviate. Now,
for sure.
I think he also could have his issues, but I want to see that veteran experience who's been to the playoffs to help lead the Rams into success in the postseason.
I think we as fans want the comfort of veteran leadership because it's a known quantity, right? Where we can point at a guy, we can look at a body of work and say, this is what they're capable of doing. I think there's a lot of comfort in fans. Because I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I believed in the Rams in 2023. I was like, the fuck are we doing? I was like, this team is going to be unwatchable. I'm going to watch it, but man, it feels like the dark ages again. This feels like 2015. I'm not prepared for this stuff. I was pleasantly surprised. And I think the biggest difference, like I said before, and Zach, I get what you're talking about. You don't want you don't want us to mess around, get to the Super Bowl. Now we got a whole bunch of young guys. But I think the biggest difference in that equation versus 2018 is Sean McVay. Sean McVay is absolutely capable and ready. And I think he will help give that young core perspective. And by the way, I think he's been doing that because you don't get the performance, you don't get the maturation from players like Kobe Turner, Puka Nacua. And I'm not talking about even from year 1 to 2. I'm talking about from week 1 to week 18 in the regular season. Puka and Kobe Turner, completely different animals. Byron Young, completely different animals than they were at the beginning of the season. Steve Avila, the same way. I think he's so good at the coaching aspect and the motivating aspect and just growing the human being, not just the athlete. I think we could take a young team to a Super Bowl and they would be more prepared than what we had in 2018 because of Sean McVay. Even if we have a young person under center, pulling the switch, right? Like, I think it's possible. Unlikely, but I think it's possible. I feel much more comfortable now with it than I would have a few years ago.
I will also say, I feel like he definitely wants to also move on from like the statue quarterback. You can tell like he has a hunger, like he wants a kid that can be mobile, that can like actually like break some of the like designs he has to go against in defenses and like have that mold where he like doesn't have to design a perfect pocket for him to throw into. And that's why I personally am more like, at least with year to year, I like more risky choices. I don't like going for these vets that are safe. Like, I like signing 2 or 3 kids. You give them a shot. You see what they got. And if they don't work out, they don't work out. But just signing a guy like Randall Cobb, who's like a little slow, a little old, like he'll catch 3 or 4 catches, but he's not going to give you any pop. I'm like, you're kind of wasting everyone's time with doing that. Like, either succeed or fail, but don't accept mediocrity. And that's my thing, especially at the QB position. Jimmy G, he'll be fine, but he's not going to win you games. And I think you have enough body of proof proof of work to know that. So, like, go for a few young kids, put them in training camp, let them throw all over the field, and hopefully one is good enough that you're like, we'll give them a shot and give them a shot for 5 or 6 games.
I'm just frustrated as a Rams fan. Like, bro, we're the only team in our division that has a quarterback that has 0 legs. Like, say what you want about Brock Purdy. He's mobile enough to move around and make off-schedule plays. Even Geno was doing it. It's frustrating. And you can hear McVay when we have to play Lamar Jackson, when we have to play, a Jaden Daniels or any of these mobile quarterbacks.
Oh, he's so jealous.
You hear the envy in his voice, man. He wants one of those guys. I get the level of comfort with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I get the level of comfort with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo that knows the system, familiar with the system. But I think, man, just that I really do think that McVay's at this point of his career where he's like, man, screw it. Like, I want to let our nuts hang and let's see what we can do. I think not only just like Matthew Stafford is confident, I think McVay has become a much more confident coach. And I think he feels like, hey, you give me something, I'm going to turn it into some gold. Give me a raw guy, I'm going to turn it into some gold. I don't need the crutch of this veteran. It's nice to have somebody that's on my level and somebody that can make coaching decisions on the field when I make the wrong call. But then again, I just need to be better as a coach and put us in a better position to win. How many times have we heard him say that after every single loss? Like, we say that, like, give him the chance, put him in a situation where you absolutely have to do that, coach, because this young guy doesn't see the field like Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. So I'm gonna slow us down a little bit. We're gonna wrap this episode up. We've been going on for over an hour. There is some breaking news that has happened within the last few minutes. Nothing crazy, but basically, Ian Rappaport has now reported that it looks like that we are looking towards the end of this Stafford carousel of progress going on, and that we should have an answer by the time everyone leaves the combine. So whether that's within the next 24 hours or through Sunday, there looks like there's going to be some progress. It's going to decide on, does Stafford want to uproot his family? Does he want to make that move to another city?
Makes sense. That it's kind of common sense that you have to do it by the end of the combine. That way, like, you have to move, teams can move picks, and you can.
Well, like, tampering really starts to happen starting, here in the next few weeks. Plus,
tampering started in Montana, brother.
Well, yes, legal tampering doesn't start until this week.
Legal. accidental
legal tampering
Okay.
doesn't happen until this week. Plus franchise tag, new year all starts here soon. So yeah, really trying. I mean, but that is reported. But again, is Stafford want to uproot his family to another city? Which again, he does have 4 kids. They do have a good life in LA. Does he want to do that? Or does he want to move to either the Raiders, the Giants? I mean, Raiders would be a
Las
good choice.
Vegas ain't far, man.
And it's tax free. Their
That's what I'm
income,
saying.
So there are some benefits to it, but there are also some risks to him moving on. He has to learn a whole new system, new head coach. Got to get acclimated to everything. So there's a lot of reasons why he could want to stay. But let's wrap it up here with our final thoughts of does he stay, does he go? Last minute predictions.
I feel like if I didn't hear that Jordan Rodriguez video, I would have said I think at the end they work it out. But after hearing her say the team is set at their number, I don't see Stafford cracking. And I feel like the options out there are real enough for him, and he thinks he's good enough to make any team competitive. I think he's going to get moved. So I think he's gone, and I feel like this team is going to enter a new phase without Stafford and Cup, and fans are going to just have to get used to that, and we'll kind of ride with them, and it's going to be a wild year.
Soup, what about you?
Man, I'm staring at the Super Bowl champion thing that's over on my wall, and I'm looking, and I'm like, if Stafford officially moves on, nobody that is in that canvas print will be in the horns. And I think that's a sad thing, but it's one of those things that we've known that the end was coming eventually. This is probably not the way any of us wanted it to see. We want a Cup retired in the horns. We want Stafford retired in the horns. We want all of our fan favorites retired in the horns. I didn't want to see Jalen Ramsey retire a Dolphin. I wanted to see him retire in the horns. But I think this organization, while not above criticism, I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt based off of the way that things are trending, based off of the way that I heard Sean McVay speak, based off of the interview that Greg Rosenthal and Jordan Rodriguez did with John Spytek, the GM of the Raiders, and a coincidental off-season run-in with Tom Brady at a ski resort. I'm not spending my off-season at a freaking ski resort in Montana, brother. Like, that's just not what's happening. I don't see a world where Matthew Stafford, unfortunately, is under center for the Rams. I don't want anybody to misconstrue that I don't want him for the Rams. That is my preferred thing. I want him as quarterback of the Rams for this season, for next season, and for as long as he wants to play football. That's what I truly, truly want. But I just think Vegas is way too enticing. They have quite a few good pieces when you realistically think about that roster and just don't think about them as the Raiders. There's a lot of enticing things for him. And I think they're showing right now they're in a desperate situation to get that franchise turned around. I think that's exciting to Matthew for him to be a savior of a franchise. We talked about Hall of Fame legacy. You could say he cares about it, doesn't care about it. If he's able to get them into the playoffs and do some damage in there, especially in a division heavy at quarterback, Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, and then Justin Herbert. And go against those coaches, I think it does nothing but continue to propel his legacy forward. So I think he's a Raider when it's all said and done. I think the Rams, hopefully we get enough compensation for me to get excited and about what the future looks like. And then I get to lament. You guys will see me on Twitter, on X, crying about whoever we put under center because I'm going to hate it initially. I know that's what's going to happen. But yeah, Stafford is, unfortunately, appreciate your services, brother, but I don't think he's going to be under center for us this year.
All right, so I'm going to take the opposite take. I do think that if he does not come back, he would be a Raider. I'm going to agree with Soup on that one. But I do believe that they're going to work things out. I do think that they're going to come together and figure things out. I think that there's a lot in play. There's a lot in play that we don't know. Mm-hmm. We could say things professionally. We could say things it's about the money. But it's about everything. It's about the money. It's about relocating his family. It's about uprooting his current lifestyle. It's about learning a new culture. I think all of these things have to come into play. What is the easiest path to victory? I think that has to be on his mind. If he wants to win championships, I would say that has to be on his mind. So I'm going to believe that he is going to be a Ram. That'll be my prediction. But if he doesn't, I will say the team that I think he's going to go to is the Raiders.
Well, Zach, I think I speak
Giants.
for the majority of the fan base where we appreciate you being the voice of optimism here. We would love for your prediction to come true. Nothing would make me happier.
Always the optimist over here.
Yeah, I listen. I'll put on all 4 or 5 of my Stafford jerseys simultaneously if he re-signs with us, and walk around in 100-degree heat down here in Houston.
I want a picture of that.
Yeah, listen. I'll wait for it to heat up probably in another week, and then I'll put on all the jerseys. I'll do the video. You guys can see me stack each of these jerseys on top, and I'll do laps around my neighborhood.
If not, if he does decide to retire, I will frame his jersey and it will hang somewhere in my house.
Yeah, listen, and if we sign Aaron Rodgers, the only way that I'll buy a Rodgers jersey is if we hoist a Lombardi with him under center, and then I don't care what anybody says. He got us a trophy, so y'all can feel whatever you want to feel about him.
Here's my thing. I will support if he wins this. I will never buy anything of Aaron Rodgers if he's a Ram, but I will thank him for his service and appreciate him for all he did.
I'm just going to say, Zach, if you did, it hasn't been a great track record historically with you wearing jerseys of QBs, right?
Dang, so I should get his jersey.
Yeah.
Anyways,
man.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. Who knows? Maybe in 24 hours, we might have to do another emergency podcast, depending on the news that comes out. But Soup, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to have you on. You have some of the best takes, and we really appreciate all of your knowledge, both NFL in general and Rams specifically.
Hey, I appreciate you guys for letting me get on. It's always fun talking football, and more importantly, Rams football. But I hope for the best outcome for us in the coming weeks. Either way, it's going to be a fun ride. Can't wait to see what happens when we get to the draft. Let's fast forward to that part.
Let's go. This is my least favorite time of the year for sure. Rumor mill up galore. Ashton, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Giants look desperate. That GM and head coach on the hot seat. You know
It's
what makes it a little bit colder? Makes it a little bit colder. Some Matthew
Taxes are
Stafford.
higher up there, right?
Yeah, we need these teams getting like sweaty, wanting the drive up that price of Stafford. Get a few more first round picks up in that offer. So make you feel a little bit better about.
I tell you what, if they traded me Malik Neighbors for Matthew Stafford straight up, I'd take it today. I take it today. I know you guys would be mad because we need capital to go get a quarterback, but you give me Malik Neighbors on a rookie deal straight up for Matthew Stafford, I'm there tomorrow. I'm making the trade myself.
Bro, Jimmy G would make that team look beautiful with Neighbors and Puka. you don't need a good QB. Get the worst QB in the league. They'd be successful.
All right. Well, make sure you follow us all at our social media. You can find us all on X. That's where you'll primarily find each one of us. But you can follow us on X at East Coast Rams. You can follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/at East Coast Rams. Please make sure you like and subscribe. It would mean the world to us. You can follow us on Instagram at East Coast Rams Pod, Threads, and on Blue Sky as well. Well, until next week, until we find out what happens to Matthew Stafford, we will see you all next time.